Hey guys, Shadow here. So I've got in my hotbar here a mysterious looking block that isn't in vanilla Minecraft and a redstone block. And the title of the video, when I place these two things down, will make a lot more sense. So we've got the Gif Block, which is what I'm calling it. It's supposed to look like a projector, but anyways. So place the redstone block, place this Gif Block, fly over here where the particles are leading us, and yeah, I added GIFs to Minecraft. um, so this is a mod creation, obviously. I don't think, I mean, you could maybe do something like this with command blocks, but it would be not nearly this good, I don't think, in terms of visuals. So, I had this idea, and I wanted to see if it was possible, and well, it turns out it is. I also have added, so I've added another, that's not the only GIF I've added. I've also added this GIF that I had on my computer. And you'll see it goes a little bit quicker than it's supposed to. And so in order to fix that, I added like a little menu here. So I can change the delay between the frames. And if you change that to 2 and come over here, it will be more reasonable. So it's not going to be, it'll look right. So my game just crashed. I thought I fixed that bug, but I didn't. But I'm not going to fix it. Anyways, so um, what I was going to say before the game crashed was that I also added an option to change the scaling, so you can change it to where it goes, bigger this way or this way. It's a little finicky in the menu, and for some reason, every time I open this, because of the way I coded it, it'll crash sometimes when I open this. But what I was saying is this scale. So if I do 0 0.5 and 0 0.5, it will change that. And so this is kind of what I was probably going to do before the game crashed, and then yeah. So this is not the right scaling, obviously, but it shows the point I think I'm trying to make. And yeah, so for those of you that are just interested in the result, this is what I got. But now I'm going to hop over into my IDE and describe kind of how I did this from there. Okay, so we're here in the code now, and this looks kind of complicated, but it's not too terrible. I think I implemented this, I guess, in maybe a couple hundred lines of code. It's not actually too terribly bad. So I use the example project that you can find. I'll link it in the description. There's a template that you can download for writing a Minecraft mod in Kotlin with the Fabric mod loader, which is what I'm using. And yeah, so I'll leave a link to that in the description. But I basically just downloaded that on my computer and have modified it using that as a base to get this. So basically, this code is really straightforward in terms of what it's doing. There's some kind of verbosity in it, but mostly it's fairly simple. So I have basically what I'm doing. There's this function here. This is at the start, so when the game's first loading up, and what I'm doing is I'm just creating a block, and I'm registering that block. To create a block, you have to register it, is the terminology. And so I'm doing that, and then I also have this. So basically, the way this works, the main way it works is most of the code is in this file, gifblock.kotlin. This is where most of this stuff is happening. So basically what a GIF is, if you're not familiar, and I'm going to explain this first so that it'll make sense what I'm doing in the code. So my original idea was, basically a GIF is just a bunch of images, and this is something you can see if you open up a GIF on in macOS's preview. You can see each frame, and so each of these frames is just played together, and that's what a GIF is. So it just basically plays a bunch of frames that are all snapshots of this thing, and then it plays that in a sequence, and that's what a GIF does. That's why it looks choppy, because it's just a bunch of frames. And so it's not super smooth because it's not a full lots of video with lots of frames. So going back to the code, my idea originally was to get that GIF file and just read directly from the GIF file. So all you had to have is the GIF file itself. It would read the frames from it in the code, and then it would display them to the screen. But I couldn't really figure out how to do that, where you take an image directly that's in that you have the pixel values in the code and then render from that. I couldn't really figure out how to do that. So instead I just took the individual frames and put them into textures, which you can store in this folder in the mod. And basically, so these are available now from the mod, and so I can just render from them, and so it's just each individual frame. This isn't the best way of doing it, I don't think. I'd rather have done it like I just described, but I couldn't figure out how to do it, so I just did it this way because it's easier. That's also why there are only 2 gifs that you can't add anymore or anything, is because I'd have to do this for every single gif. So if this was ever going to be made into an actual mod where you could add gifs and stuff, I'd probably have to change that to so that you could add gifs that are just the GIF file, and it'd be, you can do that. But I didn't add that, so this is just a proof of concept. So in the code here, I have the GIFs. So this just enables me to get either of these GIFs more easily in the code. Not too terribly important how that works. Then you have the Gif Block, which does some things with the shape and with displaying those fire particles that you saw when the block is powered and everything. But that's not too important. That's just extra code that isn't too important to understanding how this works. Same goes for the code for the screen, which is the menu. There's a lot of code in here that's just kind of extra because you have to do it, but it's not particularly interesting. This is where it starts to get more interesting. So the way I figured out how to do this was there's what's in the Minecraft code, there's what's called entities, block entities. And you might be familiar with those. Basically what they are is a way to, you can draw different kinds of things, kind of whatever you want, around a block if the block is in view. This is how for example, I think this is how with the enchantment table, they have the little book above it. I think that is a block entity, I think, but I'm not positive on that, but I think that's how that's done. And so I figured, and so this is the only way I know of that you can do what I'm doing here. And so what this does is it basically has a few values a few state values that tell what is going on with this block. The main thing here is the frame, which is basically this is how I know what part of the GIF we're on. And what this function does, all this is doing is just, I call this later to go forward a frame in the GIF, and it basically just checks if it needs to reset the GIF or if it can keep going to the next frame. And then there are some other things like is the block powered and the scale information that I showed that you can set. And then this is where the real things are happening, and it's not that much code, which is actually kind of cool. This is the block entity renderer, and that's where you actually display everything to the screen. So here I'm just getting a few things here that you have to do in order to make this work, and then I'm binding the texture, which is just terminology to prepare it for rendering, basically, for drawing to the screen. And then I choose the GIF based on here. Now this is a terrible name, and I will fully admit that, but basically this is the GIF frame. I named it I Hate Getters, but this is the GIF frame. So it just gets the texture for that frame, and basically by saying, okay, if it's frame 5, then we're going to get ncsmall5.jpg from the textures. And we're going to use that texture. And then it does a few things like moving around the image so it doesn't look wrong. So this line here, which is renderSystem.enableDepthTest, what that basically does is if I go into the game here, if I place a block in front of this entity like this, what that's doing is making sure that this doesn't display in front of this. So you can still see these things even when they're in front of the entity, the GIF that I'm displaying. If I didn't have that line there, if I didn't have this enable depth test line, then it would hide those blocks, and so you'd only see them if they weren't in front of the GIF. So that's why that line is there. And then here, this is just drawing the actual. This is just displaying the actual GIF to the screen. And then also, I have this little line, which is if the entity is powered. Or if it's not powered, we don't do this. This is why I don't render any of this stuff if the block isn't powered. I figured that just kind of makes sense. So that's why if I remove the redstone signal, nothing happens. But if I add one, it does. And I have some code to check whether or not the block is powered and to set that little state value of whether or not it's powered, so I can check it when I render the thing. Hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, so that's basically it. There's some extra code in here that just does things because of the way Minecraft is made, and you have to create classes and things to do this. There's a lot of extra code you have to write, but the general concept is fairly straightforward of doing. There's some other extra code as well that's related to the visuals of this. That's related to the way this block looks and how I can focus on it and everything. I created this block model in Blockbench, which I'll leave a link to in the description. It's just a nice little modeling software for you can use it for Minecraft models like this. And yeah. So beyond that, there are some things that I think could be added to this. If this was going to be created into a mod, or you could maybe send gifts to your friends or something, it would have to be made a bit differently. I don't really know if there'd be an easy way of uploading a GIF without some server work and things. I feel like it could be made possible, but I feel like a better application of this would be having these GIFs just stored by default on maybe, I don't know, a public server or something, and then you could shrink them down or smallify them and display them in places. I don't know how hard that'd be to do, but theoretically you could modify this to not be tied to a block if you figure that out. I don't actually know how to do that, or I haven't tried it, but theoretically you could just display it on the screen, kind of like you have the hotbar down here and such. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions, definitely leave them down below in the comments, and I will try and answer them to the best of my ability. But yeah, so hope you guys enjoyed, and I will catch you guys next time.